right.
For some reason, I historically thought fall, and I guess it's still probably true, but it's extended, where like bodybuilding, and maybe it's just America, slows down a little bit in terms of the shows and competitions, and then same with powerlifting. But it seems like neither is true anymore, and maybe that's just the expansion of all the sports.
When everything's going a little more year-round.
I think so. And then like November, December, just like the whole world shuts down, or at least historically. I don't know, I guess, because this is, for us, at least in California, this feels like the first, normal-ish holiday coming. So who knows what it will or will not be. Like, because business-wise, and for us, just because we're in our own bubble for so long, building the gym, besides pandemic-y things, just building the gym, I wasn't always sure what the hell the rest of the world was doing, but now it feels like the gyms, I don't want to say cruise control, but cruise control-ish, and then the world has its own chaos, but different chaos. So then at least I can survey
what's going on in the rest of the world.
Ish. Maybe not even the world, just internet even,
Yeah.
or America even, or because we hop into the world conversation, now we have too much to talk about. There's a lot going on.
I'm just going to note again that we are still next to a construction site that is very noisy. Today, we're recording on a Monday. We don't often record on a Monday, and for some reason they always do the really heavy shit on Mondays. So there's just like a lot going on out there at the moment. So if you hear beeping in the background, that's just what it is.
You imagine it's done soon. They're building a bunch of apartments next to the 3rd Street, and our podcast studio just happens to be on the exact side that they're building those apartments. But
there's walls going up and stuff.
Yeah, they gave us 12 months, like 2 months ago. So maybe within 10 or 12 months it'll be done. And you imagine the last I'm no fucking contractor, but 6 months is probably just inside shit.
I imagine once they get the roof on, it'll quiet down quite a bit.
You don't need much big machinery, and they're just moving in fucking piping and more little things or more hands-on shit. It's actually not as bad as I thought it would be.
No, it's not as bad as I thought. It's dirty out in the back, though, just because they're constantly blowing dust in, but that's...
We also got the highway, and so there's just always bullshit flying around.
Yeah, for sure.
Just kind of how it flows.
Our boy Tyler fixed the big fan, by the way.
Text me.
Yeah.
Text me.
Yeah, it makes an interesting noise now that it didn't make before, so I don't know what that means, but...
Better, worse, other?
Well... It's a harmonic kind of hum. It's like a
little white noise action.
No, it's low.
Because I used to sleep with a fan on because I do love my room being cold. And then obviously when you're like whether you have roommates or your parents' house or whatever, you don't always control the thermostat. I wasn't the big boss man yet, so it wasn't cold enough for me to sleep. But then white noise actually kind of fucks me up. Like I'll start to think about it. It's like a fly.
If it's particularly if it is not entirely regular.
Yeah, or even if it is, I think it fucks me up. Where like I'm more likely to fall asleep to a TV, which I had to do for a long time. I don't anymore. Then even if the fan's kind of regular, I don't know why. Yeah, it sounds like.
Well, we put an incredibly expensive ceiling fan in our bedroom, years ago now, and it is almost entirely silent.
Yeah, that's rare, I feel like.
Yeah, so that was entirely worth the extra money.
Yeah, the fan we're talking about in the gym is like this, It's probably 6 feet tall. At least in its casing, it's probably over 6 feet tall, but the fan itself might be 6 feet, and it's like this mega produce warehouse swamp cooler. And we were told that it probably still works, but it's just dirty and had to fix it. It has a water attachment to actually be a water cooler, but we didn't want to necessarily go that route. 1, because of water, and where we would get it, and 2, rusting equipment and shit like that. So now it's just like a giant fan that looks like the size of a Cessna propeller.
Yeah, they're $4,000 plus.
Yeah,
new.
Yeah, and so that whips pretty good.
Yeah,
because so are those. What's the famous company? Giant ass fan.
Big ass fan.
Yeah, big ass fan. Those I don't know, man. When it's actually hot, and obviously I'm just biased because I think you go to the gym to do something that's not easy. So why are we trying to make it easy? But when it's at over 100, I don't think a fan does shit. I'm just blasting hot air back in my face. When it's 80 or 90, and you get a nice cool breeze, or you're whipping it in, it's nice. But we're also downtown. It's kind of like the Vegas thing where cement's everywhere. So it's just it's just hot.
Yeah.
If you're hiking, and you creep through some trees, that breeze is going to feel dope and smell nice. But we live in a city.
Yeah. No, that's for sure. Cities, absorb and then reflect heat.
Yeah, so it's just jamming, but it is nice. So we have a couple regular fans, and then we just have one fucking Cessna propeller that bops down our huge hall there.
Just enormous. Yeah, I'm sitting here in pain. I was mentioning this earlier. My shoulder is not happy at all, and it's because of the way I slept, I think. I don't know. Because my back was bothering me, so I slept in a way that was, like, comfortable. So my back didn't hurt. Now my shoulder is just as pissed off as it can possibly be. And I'm digging a lacrosse ball into it, which, you know, it does help.
Yeah.
It does, at least particularly in the moment, because it shifts how the pain is perceived or whatever. But I think that at some point in the game, we all kind of felt like, oh, you know, all the mobility stuff is essential. Just we have to do all these things before we can ever get under a bar.
People still do.
And some people still do. And I never held the strongest beliefs about that.
This is going straight into how bad we fucked up when we were younger lifters.
Yeah, kind of. My premise for this episode is the thing that we feel like we got the most wrong about lifting, fitness, about whatever. And we may expand on that as we go along here.
Yeah, I think mobility became really popular because more people started to train really hard. And if you trained very hard in anything, from CrossFit to Olympic weightlifting, I mean, even other sports, the pain does feel different, you know? Like, I used to play basketball probably. Literal. When you say you work out for 2 hours a day, like as a powerlifter, you're not actually working out for 2 hours, right? You're working out for like 40 minutes max. When you play basketball for 5 hours, you're actually playing probably for 4.5 hours, especially if it's pickup because there's no timeouts, there's no nothing. You're literally running around. So I did that forever, right? Like literally 15 years. And the pain you go through, I don't know if it's more like expected or it's like more what you're used to sore feeling like in your brain. And even like lifting weights, if you do biceps, the pain you feel in your bicep is like expected. And some people like that feeling. Like I don't mind it. But when you power lift or really bodybuild, not just go to the gym and really Olympic weightlift, the pains you feel are very unexpected and you don't know how to fix them. And then some of the pains or I don't even like the word pain, some of the uncomfort, because even your shoulder, right? Like you don't need to go. You know you don't need to go to the hospital. No, it's not pain. It's just extreme uncomfort. Yeah.
If it were in the front, I would think I was having a heart attack, but it's different. So
yeah, that's good. So then it's like those are like less expected, and they're less like you squat and then your wrist and elbow hurt. And you're like, no, dude, I worked my legs. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Kind of deal. And that's like the most blatant example. But there's a lot of stuff like that. So then, yeah, physical therapists or doctors or your favorite coach comes on and starts telling you all these ways to fix it. For sure, you're going to go buy that electric vibrator and, you know, fucking blow up your whole body.
Yeah. And believe in your heart with a burning fire that the thing that you're doing is absolutely essential.
Yeah. And like you said, like it can dissipate or change the sensation, which in your brain then tells you you're fixing it, right?
Yeah.
Like the same example every PT on our podcast has ever given us is like you burn your finger or you you bump your elbow against the wall and then you rub it. Yeah, it helps the pain, but like it's not going to help any bruising.
Yeah, or doesn't keep it from bruising, doesn't keep anything. Yeah.
Or a more extreme case, you're bleeding or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, like it doesn't fix anything. And same with this other stuff. And like I'm kind of same to you. Is like I went down that hall quick because there was a lot of content out there and everyone around us was doing it. And so I'm freaking hanging out on a rubber band for half an hour before I could try to squat. Where in fact I should probably have just squatted to more depth. Not box squatted as much, and probably I moved pretty good still, especially the early years because I was playing a lot of sports, or I'd pull a lot of sled, you know, because we're under the West Side helm, so I was pulling sleds like a motherfucker for fucking decades. And then I should have probably just moved more to begin with.
Yeah,
which people didn't really talk about, even the West Side world or even the mobility guys. Weren't talking about that, like warming up.
Yeah.
They would say like, yeah, you need to, you know, lacrosse ball and rubber band this and do this and that and, you know, maybe good morning this and that, but they didn't really talk about like, right now I do 10 minutes on the assault bike semi-hard, like moving, not hauling ass by any means, but I'm moving, and I've never felt better, top to bottom, during my workout, after my workout, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think that it's easy to get caught up in the idea that because you're doing something, you're actually making something better, whereas you're making yourself feel better kind of in your head because you're doing something
right
up to address an issue, but you're not really.
Yeah, you're giving effort towards.
Yeah, it's a little placebo-y.
And again, if it is working for you.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But could we use that time better, or like?
If it becomes an excuse that you don't have time to go to the gym because you're spending 40 minutes on mobility before you do anything else, then obviously you should be skipping that stuff and figuring out another way to get ready.
Right. Or if you can't squat because you lost your lacrosse ball or your vibrating gun.
Yeah.
Now we're just literally lost. Now you're a bubble boy.
Yeah, yeah.
You're that much of a pussy, for lack of a better term. Mentally. So
I was trying to think about, because I was thinking about this topic this morning, and I was trying to think, like, is it a method that I got wrong? Is it a trend that I got wrong or whatever? Or is it a mindset that I got wrong? And I think that for me personally, it was believing that the way we trained for multiply was going to be it forever. Like, powerlifting had reached its pinnacle in terms of training preparation and how lifts are performed on the platform and stuff like that. Particularly early on, when I was initially at another powerlifting gym for a year and a half ish.
Did that come to like a halt, like a detriment, or is it just now you see, like, obviously there's many ways to train to get strong? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
A lot of my issues were like, well, I've trained for 3 years now and made no progress. Clearly I fucked up. Or like keto or whatever. Like the result was clear to me that this isn't working.
Yeah.
Rather than like your multiply career seemed solid, like you did well.
Yeah, I did okay.
Yeah, like
for an old fuck, I did well.
But you made progress.
Yeah.
You didn't kill yourself.
No.
You did good. So then it's not necessarily like, oh, Westside fucked me over.
No.
It was more just an observation of.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, I particularly because I kind of made an excuse of my age, just always used gear.
Yeah, yeah.
I was always squatting in briefs and, not so much bench training, until the slingshot came around, and then that was sort of like lifting in gear in a way.
But a lot of that's Westside too. They bench raw
right.
once a week at least, let alone twice, and then even still, I think a lot of his
reverse bands and boards, not lack of full range.
Yeah, but very, like I think even by his books, Louis says benching a shirt at least once a month.
Yeah,
and then but you're always squatting and pulling in briefs.
Yeah, I almost never.
So that's not even you. That was just, again, like
the
culture. That's what everyone did.
Yeah, that's what everybody did. Yeah. And I think that too, that the way that we trained as a group back then, I thought that was going to be. This is what it is from this point forward. Like all the people who really succeed by training in a group, because you really didn't have much choice. There were that many people who did it any other way.
I'd make an argument that that's still the case, but there's just less instances of it, or less people doing it together.
And I think because there are more, you would think that because there were more people doing it, there would be more groups of training. But no, it's more people are finding times in their day or their week to train, mostly as individuals.
Yeah, I think there's more variables and more different people, which, again, going to our other episodes and stuff we've been preaching about, like that's what makes the sports cool. But yeah, now they're nurses and firemen and moms and dads and every spectrum of human.
Yeah.
So they got to get in where they fit in. Or back in the day, they were all like self-employed or construction workers, so they could all work at the exact same time, and so they all trained at the exact same time. And people would argue this, but I don't think you can. I think if you have an optimal training environment with a good crew around you, 90% of people are going to do better than training alone. There is still going to be a small percent, and I make up these numbers, obviously, but there's going to be a small percent that literally thrives by zoning in by themselves, or does just as well. But I think the majority of folks with good music and good environment and good training partners will succeed harder. It's just what it is. And that doesn't mean exactly how we trained, right, where we're 10 guys in a corner.
Yeah.
But if you're all in the gym kind of together, even the gyms, I think the part of that reason is the schedules changes, and then the type of gyms that can give you that support without being as hands-on are still there. Like small example, I was training with Bart and Gio at Barbell Brigade. Obviously, we feel like our environment's similar here, but we're all training together, and so we're doing the same shit. But we're about to leave, and we're walking across the deadlift platforms, and we notice a dude getting a little hyped for his lift visually, and so we're like, oh, this is probably heavy for him, and so we all stop and cheer for him. I don't know this guy from nowhere. You just clap for him. And so like, yeah, that's not exactly what we had, or geared lifting had or needed, but it's still well beyond quote unquote like training by yourself.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, an extension of this is the just explosion of home gyms.
Yeah, obviously the pandemic, I think it was already exploding.
Yeah, it was already exploding. The pandemic doubled down on that, I think.
Yeah, maybe fucking 10 times.
Yeah. Whereas I think we've talked about this before, that the clientele that we gathered during the pandemic were a lot of them people who worked at home, who didn't have home gyms or didn't want to invest in home gyms or needed to get out the fuck of the house.
Yeah, first 5 members had home gyms.
Yeah.
And they just, I think had to get away.
Yeah. It's like it's not enough of a psychological break, and we're not so busy that anyone was ever particularly concerned about getting sick from being here. Yeah. So that is a self-limited group. There are only so many people that are going to do that, and that's why like we're seeing a lot more membership growth now, because we're kind of past that point.
Yeah, I don't think I could ever do the home gym thing. Even before you and I started talking about opening this place, I was talking to different people about building one in my garage, because I moved in my house 2 years, I think, before we opened 3rd Street.
Something like that, yeah.
One for content, and then 2 just for convenience, because nowhere, again, downtown can you just get a membership and like squat with good equipment.
Yeah.
But I knew I would have hated it even if I did it. Like, and I still might do it one day, but for like the emergency stuff, like tomorrow I fly kind of early, so it's like, all right, do I get up and come here and train real quick, or do I train when I get down to LA or whatever? And if I was at home, I'd just stumble down the stairs, get a quick session, shower, bounce.
Right.
There is some convenience to it, but those occasions are obviously not as prominent as. Yeah, if you have kids and they wake up at 7 and you want to sneak one in at 6.
And what I see happening too is that a lot of people are getting like enough equipment and have enough floor space that they're starting to pick up training partners in their house.
Yeah, which I guess is kind of again like everything coming full circle.
Yeah,
it's probably how powerlifting started. But then like counter to that, what we try to provide here, to not to pitch us at this random philosophy or philosophical topic we're talking about, but like you'll never have the same environment, and you'll never have the same amount of equipment as if you get a membership anywhere.
Yeah.
Untamed Barbell Brigade here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Just because, unless you really expand and get.
Yeah, unless you're Brandon Diamond's gym, where he trains by himself in the best equipped.
Yeah, and he has a basement,
gym.
Yeah, basements are a little bigger than
in
like
America.
A garage. He really does. Yeah, he made like a joke on his Instagram story, like, can you have too many bars? And then he like showed all just his regular barbells, let alone his specialty. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, and I know some were probably sent to him to review or whatever. He had like 20 very nice barbells. I'm like, dude, you're a psycho.
100%. 100%.
It's like dudes in their sneakers. That's what his gym looks like. It's like a sneaker collection.
But I feel like he's probably got a sneaker collection too.
I know he played basketball, and I know he dabbles. I don't know. People are funny, dude. You never know who's in it. One, shout out my dude Ryan Schultz. Used to work for Killcliff back in the day, and that's where I met him. But now he is a creator of Romwad. Speaking of mobility and stuff, but it's basically like programmed mobility and yoga. Not to give him a free plug, but Ryan's a really good dude. And Ryan, when I first met him, and I don't remember checking out his shoes. I wish I would have. I met him at a bunch of CrossFit games, but he's got a beard, kind of looks like a Santa Cruz type dude. For those that know, he kind of looks like that. Maybe even had a tie-dye like tank on. But then him and I talk all the time now, and he's a huge sneakerhead and has been. But like you just never know what type of folks are into what.
Yeah.
Where like Bart, based on his growing up, would be a huge sneakerhead, and he's kind of Bart likes clothes a lot.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he's like a sneakerhead.
Yeah. No, I understand that. Before we get into Mike's, we're going to take a real quick break. And we're back.
My list is going to go on forever.
Go.
I think you were talking about kind of breaking them up in like nutrition or lifting strategy or like mentality. I actually think the mentality that I had, and I don't obviously want to take full credit for it, because I think some was the environment and the team we had around for sure, was actually good, of things I checked off in my first, let's just say like 5 years of powerlifting, from like 2010 to maybe a little bit less actually, 2010 to 2013, 14. I think the mentality was good. Like I came from competitive basketball and tried to just take that same mentality into powerlifting. It doesn't work exactly, but I think my own mentality plus the mix of who was around us at the time probably bred really good stuff. And obviously that depends. Mentality depends on your goals. If your goals aren't to be one of the best, then your mentality doesn't have to be like this. But if you do want to be one of the best, then like I stopped going out, I stopped drinking, like I treated it like a professional athlete the same way I did with basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, not all of them, but a lot of our training partners were kind of like that,
Yeah.
We trained really early on Saturday, so you're not going to get blasted on Friday, even though maybe some did, but not, majority of us like took this pretty seriously.
Yeah.
And we wanted to truly improve. Our social life had to do with like eating and different fun things like that. We would go to comedy shows or whatever it might be, rather than getting blasted all the time. And that, I think, is probably what kept me in this sport, because I was always kind of that guy. Even in my regular friend group, everyone drank a little bit more or did whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I was more like mission-based like that, like objective-based. And so we kind of, that part was really good. And even Sam kind of mentioned it before, going live, like you don't know what you don't know, or like you're just following the best at the time.
Right.
And we talked to Eric Helms about that on this show, who's, one of the leading guys in exercise science and nutrition now. But he even said, like, in 2011, 2012, I was just prescribing my version of West Side to some raw guys.
Yeah.
Which comes to show vast majority, probably 95% of high level raw coaches disagree with.
Yeah.
And I do too, to most aspects, in terms of, because even Louis says, right, if you're not at West Side, you're not doing West Side.
Right.
Then you take a step aside of that, like, okay, I'm kind of training conjugate.
Mm-hmm.
But then you go outside of that, you can't really take those concepts and still call it West Side or conjugate. But I do think there's concepts in there we can obviously use in all strength sports.
Yeah. And I would just say that, like, conjugate or West Side or whatever is the best thing for people who get bored doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. I mean, because it's,
and
not
that's kind of me.
Yeah, that's because it's not a program, right? It's like a philosophy. It's
Yeah.
like, it's like boundaries.
Yeah.
And so, like, we could come up with other things that might, for like a raw lifter, obviously specificity is very high. So, like, we could find ways probably to, get the workout ADHD going that aren't a box squat.
Right.
Like, there's boundaries in West Side that I think just don't translate at all to raw powerlifting, where, like, I don't know exactly the quote Louis says, but it's like, 90% of the time he wants you squatting to a box.
Yeah, which is a lot, and that's like on my list of things that maybe not the best idea. I didn't realize how deep I could squat until I stopped squatting on a box. So
right.
like,
and you had gear on, so obviously depth looks different. But then, like, same thing, like you do a heavy deadlift like every 3 or 4 weeks. Most raw powerlifters deadlift probably won't move how they want doing that.
Yeah, and I think they won't just come out and say it, but I think the part of the box issue is that it is easier in all that gear to squat to a box
for sure
than it is to squat a full range squat if you can squat a full range squat in all the gear. And I think that squatting to depth, if you can do it, takes so much out of you. It's like the giant deadlift, that compresses or distresses your training for 6 weeks afterwards. You know?
When then, and we can pick it apart. And again, I think Louis Simmons was huge. He's on the Mount Rushmore of strength and conditioning and powerlifting, et cetera. But when you're talking raw powerlifting, contrast to that, there's a bunch of holes.
Even Einstein got shit wrong.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and so stuff like that where if you're always going to a box, if you're only deadlifting every 3 or 4 weeks, if you're constantly training exercises, you can't even track progress at all, right? So there's a bunch of holes there that came, and then if you look at West Side historically, and obviously some of this has to do with multiply gear, but if you look at West Side historically, what are their guys really good at? Squatting.
Yeah.
Weird they squat twice a week. What are they not so good at? deadlifting. They deadlift every 4 weeks. Okay, so like I wonder why. And some of that is the multiply gear, right? It's more assistive in the squat than otherwise. But you talk to big deadlifters, and sure, there are guys that deadlift heavy every once a month, and the Lilla Bridges, I think, were one of them.
Yeah.
They're really, really big deadlifters. So there's always examples and anecdotes left and right, but the majority of us normal folks are going to have to deadlift to get better at deadlifts.
Yeah.
So obviously I trained Westside for a very long time. And for the first couple of years, I literally just followed, hence the nickname a little bit, but I would just follow whatever the crew was doing, and I just wasn't getting better. I came into super training with like a 505 squat, 315 bench, and like a 550 deadlift. And I don't know what my first meet was, but maybe it was like a 515 squat, 330 bench, 570 deadlift, So like, yeah, I got better, but not going from Mike doing his random shit to, Westside's the best program in the world better, or what you would think would be.
Right.
And then it kind of played out similarly, where my squat just wouldn't improve, because I was squatting to a box all day, so I'd get in the hole as a raw guy and I'd fucking die.
Yeah.
Deadlifts got slowly better, and then bench didn't move at all. Bench wasn't moving at all for me, because I think I think this is the case for most raw powerlifters. You could probably bench heavier more often than you think. And with Westside, you're doing like extreme ends of that, right? You're doing very heavy, maximal to die, and then you're doing almost too light to count for a raw lifter. Now, it makes sense, again, for a geared lifter, because heavy as you can in a shirt will kill you for a month.
Right.
So then your other day has to be light, extreme light, because you'll die. But you still want to get some stimulus in your triceps and shit. But that's not the case for most raw lifters. So, yeah, long story short, I think just training Westside, and I'm glad I did, because I understand the program really well. I read all the books.
Yeah.
I understand it. Louis is like one of the few in the game or few Westsiders that I actually haven't met. I met most of his proteges along the way, or most of his big lifters, and trained with them and picked their brains, but I never met him. But I like knowing Westside, and I think it has a lot of strength and conditioning applications. And when I trained athletes, and I don't train a lot of sports athletes anymore, but if I did, it would be a lot of conjugate-ish stuff in my mind. Just even the idea of concurrent periodization, where you're kind of always ready, makes a lot more sense when your sport is 9 months out of the year.
Right.
Where powerlifting is twice out of the year.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
It makes a lot less. And his argument would be, we'll throw down any Saturday you call us, and we're always ready. But this isn't war. This isn't a street fight.
It's not. And the idea is to be literally at your best, and you can't be at your best all the time.
Right. At one day out of the year. That's all you have to be good at powerlifting.
And I think that, I certainly witnessed a whole lot of frustration like that, because people were not at their best all the time.
Not enough highs, not enough lows.
Yeah, and just, on the dark side of it, I think that some of the reason that people made tremendous gains on Westside squatting in gear was also that they were using gear for maybe the first time, or using more than they ever had before, or whatever. So yeah, they got like extremely strong,
of course,
and would have probably anyway.
Yeah, a lot of the non-concurrent programming that would happen in Westside, or at least even powerlifting at that time.
Yeah, just powerlifting period at that time.
Powerlifting prep meant drug prep.
Right.
Because your training didn't change.
Yeah, exactly.
No one's training changed that I was aware of that much. And yeah, there's like circa max cycles and stuff, although our team didn't do that much. That was a Louis deal. But yeah, the drug cycles in powerlifting would be a 12-week prep and a 12-week taper and a 12-week ramp up, not their training. Yeah,
it's sometime around, I don't know, probably 2014-ish, 2013, maybe turning 12, whatever, that prep became part of the vocabulary. Before, it always was training cycle, and literally training cycle had two meanings.
Yeah.
It was,
one heavier meaning.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So all that, long story short, was something that I'm glad, and I hate to be I don't have regrets. I have mistakes I learned from, or whatever the fuck shit saying that is. I don't disagree with it. So I did learn a lot, and I'm glad I am, because I got into even powerlifting because I was more interested in strength and conditioning and lifting weights in general. I never got into powerlifting because I was into powerlifting, or I never followed Arnold or Kirk Kowalski. Like those guys weren't my heroes. Strongman, none of that was my heroes. I got into it because I like lifting weights and getting people better. So I'm glad I have a good grasp on Westside and stuff. But as a power lifter, myself at the time, yeah, that was probably spinning my wheels a lot. As long as the 3 big trends I think about in the early 2000s or 2010s in fitness, at least in the strength and conditioning our world and UFC world. There's a couple of strength and conditioning coaches talking about it at the time. The paleo keto stuff, the mobility stuff, and then West Side. Those are like kind of the 3 columns that I would say, I probably spun my wheels on a good amount. I'm glad I learned about them, and the only way I learned about them was doing them. And I did all of them from different coaches, from different books, from different methods, learning about it, and then walking it myself. So I am glad I did that. But all 3 are probably 3 things that I use at little to none anymore. Really.
Right. I'm going to think that the essence of making a mistake or whatever is the belief that whatever you know in the moment trumps every other thing.
Yeah.
Like, period.
Yeah, I believed it.
Yeah.
And that's part of the cool part is I didn't go in as a skeptic and then left being like, yeah, see, told you so. Keto didn't get me shredded. Like, no, I went in believing it, and I went in with an open mind. I went into learning, and I think that's the best way to learn. Probably the only way to learn.
Yeah.
Like, you can't force yourself to try something new that you don't want to and that you're not, like, open-minded to, because you won't really, like, live that experience or learn that experience. And so I was young enough, which is good because I am fairly hard-headed at that time, and I was very new to strength and conditioning, although I'd lifted forever, that I was open enough to dive into that stuff, which was cool. And then on the side, I was still reading, the Joe DeFrancos and the Boyles, and I was reading other strength and conditioning coaches that maybe had West Side methods, but had their applications of it, or maybe didn't have West Side methods or whatever. So I was absorbing everything at the time, which was good. I'm trying to think of other things that maybe I fucked up on. I mean, all that's the majority of it, because that encompasses my early 20s.
Yeah. I think that, like, the probably the most offensive out of all those things is the paleo thing, because it's based on bullshit, and it's bullshit. I mean,
I think paleo, I mean, both of them are just so application based. Like, if I can make my own definition of paleo, like, let's eat foods with less ingredients and like whole foods, like, that sounds great. Like, there's nothing wrong there. Keto,
but it became such a religion, number one, and number two, paleo doesn't describe it.
Well, that's the issue. It's not marketing.
It's purely marketing. It has nothing to do with anything. And why, if you need to eat a particular way to feel good, rock on.
Well, look at what we already circled back to, right? Like, how does Liver King talk? And it's because, right? Like, like that's how that's like the literal and physical on steroids marketing of what paleo was. Paleo is like, oh, our caveman ancestors didn't eat Snickers, we shouldn't either, which is just a crazy argument. Like, they didn't have refrigeration, they didn't have your Instagram that you're teaching me paleo on, they didn't have airplanes, like, they didn't have nothing we have. They didn't have roads, like we have. Like, they're probably wearing bare feet, and that's a bad argument because some people do make that argument now. But where the Liver King literally says the same thing, right? Like, my test is bigger and I'm stronger than you guys because I eat like them and you don't. And I'm like, oh.
Some eating testicles and shit.
Yeah, I don't know what they're talking about. But so I think the marketing, this is something I used to say a lot, and I kind of forgot my own shit, and I need to talk about it more because it is so true and even more apparent now that if your like workout program or your diet has a name, you're being sold to, you're being marketed to. And so, like, even paleo, your whatever workout program X you're doing, even Peloton, right? Like, what's Peloton doing? Like, I think it's a great business model, and I think it's a solid workout for most people. That isn't to say that everything you're being sold or marketed to is bad, right? We buy quality things and we buy not quality things of value, but Peloton is literally the Kleenex or the tissue of biking or cardio now.
Home-based bicycle cardio.
But it's great, and I think it's super solid. Is it the best thing on the planet? No, but they marketed, wrapped this thing up to you and sold you Peloton, where they're selling you riding a bike. Yeah,
before that, well, not long before that, but before that was Nordic Track.
That was a good
cross-country skiing thing, which was fine too.
Right. Like, all of it's fine, and same with like West Side. Like, there's I did dig into like the bad, but there's a lot of good there. Yeah. But you're being packaged and sold something.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he put out a lot of free info, and that's great, but he's trying to sell you on his equipment. He's trying to sell you on his ebooks. He's trying to sell you on his videotapes. Like, everyone's trying to do, and I'm not saying we're not. Like, we sell shit too, and that's business. That's how it goes. But we also try to give you, like, you know, the under the surface truth of how to get your fitness journey.
Yeah.
And then if you want to support us through our businesses, that's great. But I'm not trying to package some shit up. P90X, Beachbody, and obviously those are the big names, you know, but there's tons of little ones within our niches, but we just can't hate on them as much because they're probably associates.
Probably we know somebody that does whatever.
Yeah. And again, it's not bad. There's better coaches, there's worse coaches, there's better value programs and worse value programs. But paleo and keto, like, there are applications, and I think, again, if you take them as like a philosophy, I think that's great.
Yeah.
If the majority of your meals are based on whole foods and, you know, more single ingredient foods, you're probably going to be healthier, happier, and fitter. But they, like, literally demonized everything else. Like, you're gonna die if you have a donut.
I think it's the human tendency to virtue signal every fucking thing that we, you know, feel wholeheartedly is the only thing.
Yeah. Meanwhile, they're probably sniffing coke every weekend. You know, like.
Yeah.
That's the guys. The amount of arguments is another argument I used to make all the time, and it's less at me, which is good because fake sugars have kind of been debunked-ish.
Yeah.
Not everyone, obviously. Some people demonize the fuck out of them, but most people kind of understand. Like, all right, we're gonna do okay.
Yeah.
But how many people used to talk shit on me drinking energy drinks that were diet, or even Diet Coke? Meanwhile, they're getting hammered and doing drugs on the weekend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, there's just no way we're going to have this talk right now, right?
Like, things that might or might not be bad for you versus things that are clearly bad for you.
Yeah, or even squatting and deadlifting heavy.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot more common now, and less people coming after me, but people would used to come at, like, the pop people, you know, pop culture people, or more normies.
Gen pop.
Yeah, more normies, for lack of a better term. They'd come after me like, that's not good for your back. Oh, okay, let me just go sit on the couch instead. That'll be better for my back. You're correct.
Every person that made the Snap City comment on every deadlift video on YouTube in 2012.
So you guys are just going to go soft on some cable rows and think you're better. Like, what are we talking about? Like, doing something hard that has a risk doesn't make it bad.
Right.
Like, there's a big difference between something that's bad for you, like smoking cigarettes or doing drugs or drinking copious amounts of alcohol to run away from your real life. These we know are bad. Yeah. Versus squatting, which may have some risk. Mm-hmm. Risk and bad are much different.
Yeah. Everything has a risk, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
that's a whole nother argument for another episode. The risk versus reward of deadlifts, when those people talking about it go to power cleans as your better risk to reward, which makes zero fucking sense.
No, that doesn't make any sense at all. I don't know. I mean, people have deadlifted things since they've discovered that rocks could be picked up. Yeah. I mean, it's not exactly the same thing, but it's pretty much the same thing.
No, it's the same thing. But if you lift a rock, you're functional. If you lift the barbell, now you're slowing down. You're being slow. Because muscles slow. Yeah. Yeah, slow muscles.
I don't get
it. The fuck are we talking about?
I don't know. But I think that's pretty good for today. Unless you got something.
No, we're moving. Holidays are coming, but we're jamming. Clothing launch hopefully in the next month or so. Details to come. Join Discord if you want to get involved. You get all first looks, first touches, first bids on all of it. 50percentfacts.com to join that Discord. Group chat's happening there. And then our Friday episode is based from Discord. So if you really want to get involved with the community, head there. 3sb.co for all your clothing, your hoodie needs. New episode every Wednesday and Friday. I'm Silent Mike, and we'll catch you in the next one.
I am at the Jim McDonald on all social media. This show is 50% Facts, where percent is a word. 50 is just numbers. 50% Facts is a Spreaker Prime podcast in association with iHeartMedia on the Obscure Celebrity Network, where you can also check out Stimmed Out with the Game Day Barbell Guys and the hashtag Coffee Time show with Noah Kinsey. And we'll talk to you on Friday.